What's up? And welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, we got a fucking packed show today, dog. The motherfucking culture.
Yeah, the Weeknd knew we had a big pod already, so he's like, let me drop this 6-track EP real quick.
Yeah,
and dare you not to review it right when it comes out.
And out of nowhere, like no singles, nothing. He's just like, just gonna leave this here, gonna spill my heart about Selena Gomez for a little bit, and then I'm just gonna walk away. So, shout out the Weeknd. Before we jump into any of this, though, we want to just ask all of you to share us with a friend, subscribe on YouTube somewhere down below if you're watching on YouTube, follow us on iTunes, and give us a rating and review. We got another review, which we always appreciate. Keep those rolling. Give us all the feedback at Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter. Interact with us. All right. Well, why don't we jump in with something non-music or movie related? Our guy Donald Glover. We had mentioned on a past pod that he was going to be directing, writing a new Deadpool series for FX with his brother Steven Glover. And then, what was it, last Wednesday? I woke up to a bunch of tweets from Donald Glover saying, I'm not on FX anymore, this Deadpool thing. He's still in Atlanta. But here is the script for what would have been the final episode of the season, because I wasn't too busy to write this script, which is what FX said was the reason they were cutting Deadpool from their lineup of shows coming out. Did you read the script?
Yeah, I skimmed through it. It's like 15 pages. It's a full real script. It's a lot there.
What did you take away from it?
Well, I thought the funny thing back, that day when it was trending and stuff, there were a lot of people that were taking it seriously. They like they didn't realize that some of the references were like 36 hours old.
Yeah,
like he had just banged it out. Like, oh yeah, like look at this. Like come on, it's a joke. Yeah, but it's a great joke. I mean, he was really skewering. I guess Marvel, FX. It's tough to say. I know like there were like he was kind of proposing that it was like racism against like the show being like I don't know black. Like overwhelmingly black, which is weird because that would not be FX's problem. They have a great relationship with him about Atlanta, which is a show that is incredibly unapologetically black and is an amazing show. And then Marvel just had their highest grossing movie to date, Black Panther, come out. It'll likely be the third highest grossing movie domestically ever. And that movie was unapologetically black and great. So I don't understand that would be the real reason. And then Steven Glover recently today in an interview with The Wrap was saying that they had this thing about Taylor Swift and then it was the last straw. So we don't really know much, but I don't know. The racism charge, I'm not saying he's lying or anything. It's just so strange that would be the reason given the state of everything today.
So yeah, Steven Glover, his brother, tweeted out that the show is too black. They had an episode about Taylor Swift, which was the last straw. And I was thinking, I was like, they probably have some sort of deal because they had to sign a contract at some point that they couldn't sell their IP or any of their scripts around this to anybody else. But if like Cartoon Network could get their hands on this or something like that, I would love to see like what they were working on, what they're coming out with, because Deadpool, I mean, obviously a very popular movie series out right now. I don't even know if it's a franchise. Marvel's the franchise.
The second one comes out in May.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see like how the animated show would have been different from the movie. But the thing people like about Deadpool is that he doesn't pull punches. They said that they were trying to give Rick and Morty a run for their money, so they were going to do some outlandish shit in this. And the fact that we're not going to get to see it because what it seems like Marvel was too scared to see where this was going or didn't approve of the direction it was going is disheartening and just kind of tone deaf, but also just so surprising. Like give Donald Glover all the chances to make what he wants because the dude can't miss right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at some of the other Marvel television shows, one of which would stand out to be Luke Cage on Netflix, a show about a black protagonist and a lot of black supporting cast as well. But that was that first season, second season coming out in June, but that first season was kind of critiqued for not going all the way with the black issues it was kind of presenting and walking around, So perhaps Marvel Television just wanted to play it safe. Marvel Television does operate separately from Marvel Studios for the movies, but I don't know. I mean, you don't commission Deadpool after the success of the first film and then expect to have it be tame, especially on a network like FX, which has tons of mature shows. So I don't know. The whole thing is very weird.
Yeah, definitely strange and disappointing, but something just tells me Donald Glover's going to land on his feet. So I'm not too worried about him. Why don't we move on to somebody? I don't know if I'm worried about them from success standpoint, but just from a song writing standpoint, The Weeknd, my dude. Man, this was a depressing album, but at the same time, I was so excited. I guess EP, I should say, not an album. I was so excited because I heard a little bit of Trilogy Weekend in there, and I was like, yes, this is a good direction. Keep going this way. But it was a good mix, I thought, of his newer sound. He's still working with, one of the guys from Daft Punk. I think Doom wasn't on this, right? It was Mike Will. Mike Will produced one of the songs, so he's keeping. He brought in some of his older producers with his newer producers, trying to mix that sound, and I was digging it. So The Weeknd's My Dear Melancholy. I want to hear Dave Martinson's thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah, so 6 tracks. That is by definition an EP, yet it's being called an album in some places or a mini album. And I'm like, no, can we stop with this?
Yeah.
There's not enough EPs anyway. Just call it an EP and be happy with it, but Wikipedia still has it as an EP. So that's that. But yeah, I think and I think what you said is really spot on. It's kind of harkens back to Trilogy Weekend, House of Blues, Thursday Echoes of Silence, this trilogy of 2011 mixtapes. But it also doesn't totally throw away what he did in fall of 2016 on Starboy, where he really had those pop sensibilities that made him such a mega star,
Triple platinum, dog.
Yeah, and Beauty Beyond the Madness 2015, that was a double platinum. Like he's got the numbers for sure, and he has the hits. But I don't know, this is it was kind of felt like him kind of going back to the well, but I'm not sure if this is something he would commit to, because it's not like he's taking any risks per se. Actually, Starboy, he kind of tried so many different things on it, almost to the album's detriment, because the album was so fucking long.
Yep.
But on this 6 tracks, he kind of does stuff he's already done before, and to Weeknd fans, and I was certainly excited about it, like many fans, because you got those trilogy vibes, and that was exciting to see, because those trilogy vibes, that moody, atmospheric R&B, really druggy. He's always been really sexual, but it's more explicit back then. He's kind of getting back to that, whereas Starboy stuff, it's still about him being a selfish lover, but it's different, right? It's tamer, I guess you could say. He just does different things.
It's a more mainstream, I think, intentionally.
And you mentioned the collaborators. I mean, Gustaflstein, the French techno DJ, did 2 songs with Yeezus, Kanye. He had some good work on this, I would say. You kind of can tell the French techno-y sensibilities there. Skrillex was on Wasted Times, which I think is the best track on the EP. Stara also wrote that with him. She does a lot of work. And I think this, for unexpected, no rollout, no promotion, sampler of more Weeknd, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and even like the cover art is more old school Weeknd. You see Trilogy and it's all black and white, dark tones, and Starboy was such a bright cover, and it was like, this is not what we've been expecting of the Weeknd, or what we're at least used to. So it's definitely moving, I think, in the right direction, because while it holds the Trilogy vibe, it is still more digestible than a lot of the tracks on Trilogy. And I think just overall the songs are probably better than a lot of the tracks on Trilogy, even though there are some Trilogy stands that ride hard for those mixtapes. So.
Sure.
After listening to The Weeknd, I checked out this Czarface MF Doom album. Czarface meets Metalface. And I felt like I was transported back to like the 1990s listening to this.
Oh yeah.
I can see this smile, Dave. Give me your review of this album.
Well, yeah, I think that's exactly the right vibe, because you listen to Czarface meets Metalface, or any Czarface record. This is their fourth. 1, 2, 3, fifth, I think. Yeah, fifth since 2013, and it feels like something that was recorded in the late 90s during the boom bap era of hip hop, and it definitely feels authentic, which is awesome. And I think the reason this Czarface in general, this super group composed of Inspect the Deck from Wu-Tang Clan, so obviously a big member of the 90s era hip hop age, especially in the Northeast, combined with ZL and Esoteric, this kind of underground Boston duo, their boom bap sensibilities really stand out. And it's exciting to anyone who listens to it, just because you don't get a lot of boom bap these days, especially with Joey Badass kind of going more contemporary to kind of grow his brand, which you cannot fault him for that. But the old boom bap Joey, that was a while ago. But like this, you get some Action Bronson vibes on here if you want to think more contemporary. But overall, it's just an album that feels 90s. It has the bars. It's really about the rhyming, and it's also very referential. I think throughout all the Czarface records, they do a lot of like comic book and like nerd references, Marvel stuff, everything really. We'll get to being referential later with Ready Player One. Yeah. But I think in rap, as long as like it's not like lazy storytelling, it's pretty cool. I thought Nautical Depth was a really good song, as well as Phantoms, where the feature from Open Mike Eagle, I think, is really great. But yeah, overall, I mean, if you're someone who likes lyrical rap, if you are tired of the takeover of trap or SoundCloud rappers, whatnot, go to this. And really don't have an excuse to complain if you don't listen to stuff like Czarface when it comes out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think more than anything, what stood out to me was just like I really enjoyed like the vibe and the sound of the album, which is I think a testament that Doom is seeming to get back kind of to his old self. I don't think he's anywhere near where he was. I mean, he lost a son recently, and
last year,
and he was also like deported or something like that, which is just like tough decade for Doom. But I was just glad to hear that he seems to be kind of rounding back into form. And yeah, Nautical Depth and Phantoms were the ones I highlighted too. Those will be up on our Nowstalgia Best of 2018 playlist very soon. Go on Spotify and follow that. So then I went from the Weeknd to Czarface to the Voidz. What a fucking trip, dude. What a trip. So the Voidz, Julian Casablanca's newest band, his follow-up to the Strokes, probably what people call the savior rock band of the early 2000s, not the 90s. This was their second album. Their first one, Tyranny, is like a beautiful mess. If you listen to it, it's everywhere, all over the place. Seems to really have like no direction, just trying to do whatever. This was a much better album than Tyranny, but I still don't know if this was a good album. What did you think?
I don't have any time for the Voidz.
Next. The first half of the album is pretty good, but it gets to this one song that's like an acoustic woke Julian Casablanca song. And if you've read that, what was it, Rolling Stones or Vulture? Vulture
2 weeks ago.
Interview with him, and he like claimed Jimi Hendrix wasn't popular. He claims basically anything pop is terrible, and
the devil. Yeah.
He picked some, I forgot. I think it was like Indie Pink or something like that.
Ariel Pink is
going to be like the most well-respected artist of this generation in decades to come. And I was like,
okay, guy.
Yeah, you need to like take a step back. This was, it was more Strokesy in the first half, which I appreciate. It was tight at points. It kind of let itself explore more than the Strokes ever did. But then it got to the acoustics on. It seemed like everything after that was just kind of like, it sounded like the first album again. So definitely not a good look for Julian Casablanca's. Was there anything you did like about this album?
I just liked that it was better than the first Voidz record. I thought the first Voidz one was just really garish. I just did not like that like dark, overbearing production. I don't know. It was definitely not Strokesy, of course, but I just found it really hard to listen to. And the second one is, not really that, at least not till the end. So that's a positive, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Julian Casablanca's, I think, is a tiny bit overrated. I think the really great things about the Strokes were that they had like world-class guitarists, and Casablanca's just brought the right vibe, like that, like, I don't care, rock star lifestyle vibe as a singer with a, kind of a growling voice at the front. But yeah, definitely not a good look. I kind of wish that the Strokes would just make an album again. But Albert Hammond Jr. released an album 2 weeks ago and no one talked about it. So they're definitely a band that's better together. But someone that does shine solo is our girl Kacey Musgraves, dude. Her fourth album, Golden Hour. Her follow-up to 2015's Pageant Material. She had a Christmas album dropped in between then, which actually got really good reviews. This was, I think the best way to describe it is like stoner country music. She tried to, she's like really well known for being like a very smart writer in her songs. And this kind of went in a different direction where she went with like simpler lyrics, but she explored more with the sound. What stood out to you about this album most?
I mean, everything I find interesting about Kacey Musgraves has nothing to do with country music, or I guess the country music she makes,
Right.
Country today is kind of having an identity crisis with, the infusion and popularity of like, quote, bro country, right? Luke Bryan, Florida Georgia Line is kind of like dumbing down of the lyrics about partying and trucks and girls. It's very lowbrow, but it also sells out arenas in the summer, right? And then other artists have been criticized for dipping their toe in that, like Jason Aldean, etc. But Kacey Musgraves has openly, and not that she's alone in this, but she's openly kind of fought against that. But I think it means even more because she's a woman. Women have been marginalized in country music, always basically, and she's able to kind of stand out in spite of that and not let, quote, gatekeepers like keep her down. And this coronation's kind of been happening. I mean, she beat Taylor Swift for all those country music awards a while ago, right? Mm-hmm. And like she's kind of been and now she's like the darling of the gay community.
Yeah.
Because of was it Follow Your Arrow, that song, which again LGBTQ people don't find a lot of allies in the country music scene, generally a more conservative genre that plays to people down the South, etc. Yep. Pretty obvious there. But yeah, I mean, so Kacey Musgraves she's kind of, I don't know, I feel like she's definitely the most unique and interesting person in the scene these days, I guess, besides like Sam Hunt. But like,
do you find Sam Hunt interesting?
No, I find the idea of Sam Hunt interesting because he's been able to coast on not committing to any sound at all. Mm-hmm. And like the whole like Drake of country thing, like Sam Hunt puts out Body Like a Back Road, a bro country song that's really simple and not up to his songwriting standards, and it's a fucking huge hit. And he played a ton of shows last summer off that, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of Sam Hunt I find fascinating. But yeah, Kacey Musgraves, this new album, Golden Hour, I mean, it's probably going to be a top 10 album of the year, right? It's going to be on the lists.
Yep.
And I mean, country, good luck beating the country scene. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's quite good. And even if you're not a big country fan, it's kind of alternative country. And we certainly don't talk about country on this at all, this podcast at all. But, I thought High Horse is a fucking amazing song. It's like a Bee Gees style disco song. Like that's a pop song that happens to have like her country twang to it. Like I really love that. But yeah, overall, the album is pretty impressive. What do you think?
Yeah, she has an ability on this record to make songs interesting with like the littlest like shifts to it. Like a song like Space Cowboy, like it's a very like almost classical country song when you think about it, because it's a breakup song. It's about like heartbreak and I can give you your space cowboy, but like the way she sings it and like just these little things, like she has like these little like snares and synths that like kind of pop throughout the song. They're kind of like, oh, that's really like interesting. And it's more about like just the overall feel of this album is very just like it's like groovy, but like you can almost like space out and just kind of like mellow out to it album, which kind of just fits her feel so perfectly. I definitely think this will be contending for the top 10 on my end of year list, if not making probably like the low end. I'm hoping, but this is, I think Kacey Musgraves continues to be the class act of country music, or at least the most interesting person in country music, I'd say right now. Yeah, I would also say Happy and Sad was a really interesting song to me, just because it's like so simply written. It captures such a real feeling that doesn't I don't think it talked about much, like that feeling of like being happy but like also feeling like this underlying feeling of sadness that you can't really explain. Yeah, and also shout out the song Mother, which she wrote after during an acid trip. And her mom texted her. She's just a really like a cool chick. So shout out Kacey Musgraves. Really enjoyed that album. A movie. Let's move on to the movies, Dave. Movie I really enjoyed, but had some issues. Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs.
Indeed.
I mean, I just want to preface this. I am like very pro dog. I would have been pro dog party for sure. I would have been up there with Tracy leading the charge. This is Wes Anderson's what?
Ninth.
I was gonna say 10th, ninth movie. Probably near the lower end in a lot of people's lists, but still, Wes Anderson movies are a class act in filmmaking almost every single time. Did you like this movie?
Oh yeah, no, I really enjoyed Isle of Dogs. I've seen 6 of his movies. I haven't seen Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, which I know people love, and The Darjeeling Limited. I haven't seen those 3, but yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. We tweeted a poll about your favorite our favorite Wes Anderson movies at Nostalgia Pod. So if you missed that poll, make sure you follow the count on Twitter so you don't miss it next time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I think this is definitely towards the top for me. And I mean, Wes Anderson, if you don't know, he's like the auteur's auteur, right? Only one of his movies is even an adaptation. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Everything's original. Mm-hmm. And his cinematography is so iconic just because it's so unique. It so stands out, right? You know, all the big wide shot pans and just kind of like the artistic colors that he uses. Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, critiques of him would say that he's overly indulgent in his storytelling and, you know, kind of pretentious at times, which I totally get. And I agree with in some movies for sure. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Isle of Dogs, his second stop motion movie, you know, I was expecting a lot from it. And I actually, you know, I do think it delivered just, you know, in terms of the movie front, because I was really impressed with the world building of this movie, the fictional Japan that it establishes. I was really impressed with, because I know I'm going to like the cinematography. I know I'm going to like all of his freaking collaborators that are providing the voices. Right. I know all that already. Yeah. But I you know, and I know his stories are going to be kind of weird. But the world building really stood out to me, and you know, I was totally engrossed. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, the thing that I think I enjoy most about Wes Anderson films, I mean, he does a lot of things really well. Like you already mentioned, he does beautiful set design. He does beautiful framing of his shots, and just the way he writes is really well done. But he does these really like small emotional moments really well. Like you think about the Royal Tenenbaums, you know, a movie where you're looking at this very dysfunctional family, and there's some very dramatic things that happen, and probably the scene that, or the moment of the movie that hits me hardest emotionally, is at the end when Ben Stiller goes up to Royal Tenenbaum and goes, "It's been a hard year, Dad." And just like that moment holds so much emotional weight, but like it's built up by everything else that happens in the movie and everything else they explain. And like that, I had that same feeling when, you know, I guess spoiler alert, when Atari goes to the chief and says "good boy" and gives him a bath, and like he finally plays fetch with him. Like he has these moments in these stories, and he does that, I think, so well, that hold a lot of weight but aren't like huge, you know, in a sense. I also think the thing I really enjoyed about this movie in particular was, and we're going to talk about the issues of this, but it also explored like a different setting than he's had. I mean, the Darjeeling one was set in India, I believe, right? And that explored that culture, but more from the perspective of like how it enlightens white people. And Tracy's character is problematic in ways that we're going to get to at the end of this discussion. But I just thought, you know, it was very interesting to like the sushi scene. Like when he's making the sushi was fucking mesmerizing. Like only Wes Anderson does that. So I enjoyed the film a lot, and I also thought he infused humor really well. Like every time the dog sneezed, I was like, I giggled. It's just funny. Or like Jeff Goldblum's dog. I forgot which dog he played.
One of the crew.
Yeah, how he always kept talking about, oh, have you heard the rumor about this? Like, it was just a funny running bit. So.
I like the bit where Ed Norton's dog was, all right, let's put it to a vote.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Who wants to vote Chief out of the group? Yeah, no, it was, and also just like the inventiveness of it. Like, who would think to like make a movie about like exiling dogs and then like making it so that you don't understand everything the humans say, but you're getting it totally from the dog's perspective, but also like pull that off in a way that's not like super campy or stupid. I don't know. Where does this rank for you in the Wes Anderson films?
Good question. Of the six I've seen, I probably have it third.
Yeah, I think
after Grand Budapest and The Royalty.
Yeah, I think I have Royal Tenenbaums, Grand Budapest, and Fantastic Mr. Fox ahead of it. Life Aquatics close, and then it's somewhere around there in the middle. It's not his best, but it's up there. Before we move on to the discussion about the problematic parts of it, was there anything else you wanted to highlight?
I thought some of the newcomers to the cast were great additions. Courtney Vance as the narrator. Obviously, he's got a really strong, rich voice, and it was perfect guy. Greta Gerwig, who is someone you, on the surface, you would assume had already worked with Wes Anderson, but this is actually her first film. She did a good job as well, and even Yoko Ono, her first time playing a character named Yoko Ono, which was odd, but I thought they were nice additions to his rotating group of people he always works with. I mean, this is Bill Murray's 8th Wes Anderson film. The only one he didn't do was the first one, Bottle Rocket. Jason Schwartzman, this is his 6th one. He only was a writer this time around, but pretty impressive.
Who was your favorite dog or your favorite voice performance?
Oh, a good question. Yeah, I thought so. Bryan Cranston, I thought was great. I thought Liv Schreiber was great as well. And Ed Norton, I thought was hilarious. But I think Cranston. I think Cranston's really does a lot of the heavy lifting. I would guess he has the most lines. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, Cranston's such an amazing story. Just like as a side note, like someone who did like all these bit roles through the '90s and just really kept sticking with acting. Did Malcolm in the Middle and then gets fucking Breaking Bad, and now he's everywhere and. Such a talent and such a joy. Yeah, he was great as Chief. I also thought Tilda Swinton as Oracle was just everything I wanted from that, and like that as a infusion of humor was also just hilarious. Which dog would you be from the group?
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I don't know. Probably Ed Norton.
Yeah, I feel like I'd probably be Ed Norton's character as well. I could see myself maybe being Boss. Bill Murray's character too. He seems to have a soft side to him. All right, so why don't we jump into this discussion now? Because while Wes Anderson made a film that you and I both enjoyed, there's been a lot of talk about the role that Japanese culture plays into the movie. Why don't you give us a little breakdown of what people have been having issues with that?
Yes, so a lot of people. I mean, this is definitely an observation that was coming from critics of color that are, I think, naturally just more adept to see these problems, right away. But a lot of people, and this is also coming from Asian Americans specifically watching the movie here in America. But the general gist of it is that Isle of Dogs really doesn't require, the story does not require itself to be set in Japan. It's kind of just set in Japan because Wes Anderson is a big fan of Japanese cinema. He's openly talked about his love of Miyazaki and Kurosawa. And this is kind of his, in his mind, this is a homage to that, right? But the critiques, I do think there's a lot of merit to what these are saying, but the mileage of whether that impacts your enjoyment in the movie really depends on the person, I guess. But, it's kind of like cultural tourism in the sense that it's just kind of going to Japan. And this, again, it's a fictional version of Japan. Nagasaki City is not a real place, of course, and it's set 20 years in the future, as Courtney Vance told us. But the dogs, and they give you this with text in the beginning. The dogs speak dog; they're barking. But for our viewing pleasure, it's being automatically transcribed into English.
Mhm.
But there's no subtitles for the Japanese speakers. There's only a translation when it's convenient, when there's a TV translator there giving it to us in English, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of where a lot of it's coming into, where the Japanese people are kind of the sideshow in their own story.
Right.
And yes, you could retort, but it's just dogs, but it's dogs voiced by white people, right?
Mhm.
And it's, it's tough because it's really is hard too, because Asian cultures have long been stereotyped in Hollywood. Watch a movie like 16 Candles. There's
Yeah.
just characters that are just blatant stereotypes, and it's played for laughs. And the fetishization of Asian culture in this case, where Wes Anderson clearly doesn't mean anything bad by this.
Mhm.
And I think the people that are being, more kind to him are just saying that, just being tone deaf about how this would go and make people feel.
Right.
It's not an obvious blatant ripping off. It's not a cultural appropriation, right?
Yep.
In that sense, it's just kind of him not understanding the issues with it. But, I saw a quote, or rather a long tweet from someone who just, not a verified account or anything, just a Asian American guy who saw the movie, and he saw it at the ArcLight in LA, right? And he said, I expected the movie to love Japan and hate Japanese people. That's just how artsy white men operate. And I'm like, all right, that kind of makes sense. And the hipster critique that's always lobbed at Wes Anderson, hipster culture has long been criticized for just kind of taking things from other people and just using it, and right? Yeah. But the next part of his quote, I did not expect to hear roaring laughter to the equivalent of a ching chong joke. I did not expect snickering during regular Japanese conversation, yet there it was. And I do think that the Japanese language is kind of played for laughs at point, because we don't get the translation. And, there's a lot there. I don't think it's totally baseless.
No, yeah, I don't think it's baseless. I think, it's hard for me to remember. I don't remember any times I laughed at like the language, but I remember times when they wouldn't translate, but something would be happening in the background. Like, and that's one of the things Wes Anderson does a lot, is that when someone's talking, it's not just like they're talking, there are things happening around them. Like, like the Atari could have been giving a monologue and one of the dogs is like, I don't know, like scratching itself or like sneezing or something like that. And I think at that point it can become a little muddy, but I think definitely another thing that, we talk about people getting these roles, like Yoko Ono is, I think, a great casting, because that's an Asian person, Asian American now, who is filling one of these roles and did it greatly. And Atari's character is a Japanese actor, and I believe the person who played the mayor and the person who played like the news person on TV was also Japanese. But yeah, the dog roles were played by all white Americans except for Courtney Vance.
Right.
And it is problematic to be representing this culture, but not necessarily having actors who are also doing that. Although it makes me feel better, Wes Anderson did have a Japanese person writing this with him and working on the dialogue and trying to get most of that right. I actually thought Tracy's character was a little bit more egregious, and the role that she played in the movie, in terms of going against culture. So Tracy is this, for those who haven't seen the movie, she's this senior in high school. She's a study abroad student from Cincinnati, Ohio, who basically at the end, like, puts together the whole conspiracy against, killing the dogs and saves the dogs in a way.
She's literally a white savior.
Yeah. Saving
the foreigners.
Yeah.
She's Matt Damon in The Great Wall.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I've said I'm not a huge anime culture person, but in doing some reading around this, it's my understanding that like her character is something that is portrayed a lot in anime culture, which is like this brash, outspoken American study abroad student, or American who's in the story. But being the actual savior of it is definitely problematic, especially because I think there's a case to be made that you could have written her character out completely.
Yeah.
So
it really hurts Atari. Like, Atari kind of takes the back seat in the second half of the movie, and as the main non-dog lead initially, it's an interesting choice.
Yeah, and especially because they kind of framed it as Atari was second coming of this great Japanese myth about the boy who saved the dogs in the beginning, and then you have the American white female save. It just felt like you had it all right there already. Like you didn't necessarily need to have this happen, but it's not perfect, and I think this is a problem that isn't going to be solved anytime soon, but I think just the fact that there were steps taken in this movie to try to be respectful of the culture, to try to, make the dialogue correct. From what I read, the dialogue is close, if choppy at points, but it's close to what's actually like, it makes sense. So that's good. And it's not just like they're throwing like gibberish words or throwing gibberish sentences together. So, Wes Anderson got to be a little bit better there, but I'm not gonna knock him too much. I think it's admirable that he tries to explore these cultures, although it needs to get a little bit better about how he does it moving forward.
Right.
To a movie that is egregious in different ways. Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's most recent film, his follow-up to The Post. I guess not really a follow-up, but first movie since The Post.
Well, he technically made Ready Player One first, and then while he was waiting for the effects to get done, he banged out The Post in like 4 months.
Right. Based off Ernest Cline's 2011 novel of the same name, starring Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cooke, Ben Mendelsohn. I guess Mark Rylance was also in a starring role in this.
Lena Waithe.
Yeah. Oh, Lena Waithe too. Yeah. Shout out her. This movie has been getting a lot of mixed reviews from people. I've seen some people skewering it, some people saying, it's not that bad. I just want to start off by saying this movie takes place in 2045, this dystopian future where people would rather spend their time in this amazing virtual reality video game where everybody's connected and can do whatever they want, pretty much.
The Oasis.
But everybody's obsessed with 1980s culture still.
Yeah.
That was the most confusing part to me.
Yep.
Like,
culture just stopped.
Yeah.
And
and Halliday had such a big influence that no one cared about culture after him.
Yeah. I think that's the weird. I mean, a lot of that's just ripped straight from the book too, but the book itself is something that was pretty well regarded when it first dropped. And there was a bit of a retrospect when people were like, wait a minute. There's a lot of issues with this, both as just a piece of literature in terms of the writing quality, because Ernest Cline, wasn't like he wasn't really anyone. He just kind of wrote the book and made his millions. Good for him. But, the literature quality, from what I've been told for a lot of people, isn't the best. But also the storytelling. And, there's a lot of issues which we'll get to because they're in the movie as well. But there's a lot of weird stuff. And one of that's just that James Halliday just is his all-encompassing presence that he just made culture stop.
Right.
And nothing after 1980 matters to anyone. And frankly, it's a weird choice for making a movie today, because a lot of these references to 80s stuff and 90s stuff is going right over all the kids' heads that are watching this movie in the theater. That's kind of a different conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think this conversations around this is really interesting, just because if you haven't seen the trailer, at least give it a watch, because it references all these like real world things like Ninja Turtles and Gundam and the Iron Giant and Halo and Chucky and Fast Time at Ridgemont High, etc. There's a lot of stuff in there, right? And
I think there's like thousands of like nostalgic references.
Right. And shout out everyone making the movie. I believe it was Amblin for licensing all this shit, right? Like that, they probably deserve an Oscar for all that work. That must have taken forever. They didn't get everything, of course. They really didn't get to use Star Wars stuff, which knowing Disney doesn't surprise anyone. But they did reference the Millennium Falcon, which I thought was a good.
You had to tie it in somehow.
Yeah, but all these references and the discussion around this movie, like you said, some people fucking hate this movie and some people find it really enjoyable, and then also like some parts of nerddom like fucking ride for this shit. And I found the movie quite enjoyable. I mean, the more you think about it, the more you can poke holes in it. But as a popcorn flick, which it's pretty unabashedly one, I think it's fun. I think that the CGI is outstanding. The movie's probably 70% CGI because the Oasis stuff is 100% computer generated, and there's no uncanny valley. I thought it was quite good. I thought the racing scene in Act 1 was awesome. And I thought, overall the storytelling moves pretty well. It kind of treks through an exposition, which there needed to be a lot of, was told, relatively fun way, I thought. But there's a fuck ton of issues about this story. A lot of that, again, comes from the book. What else stood out to you?
Yeah, well, what stood out to me was you really have two types of Steven Spielberg movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have like the heavy like stories like Schindler's List or Saving Private Ryan or even Jaws is, I mean, it's heavy just in the fact that it's this like horror film, kind of. I don't really know, thriller. But then you also have like the fun, exciting movies, and I think Spielberg, when he decides to just go fun, is really just enjoyable. And if you just sat back and watch this movie and were like, I'm just gonna take it for what it is, like you said, a popcorn flick, where you're just really going to see these references and kind of enjoy like this like light action movie that has no depth to it at all. Yeah, it's a good movie for that, in that sense. It has no emotional weight. I think I'm trying to think about what was worse when they were like, I'm hideous to look at. Olivia Cook's
Oh my
character,
God.
Artemis, is hideous to look at, and she has like a birthmark. I was like, okay, that really stood out to me.
But also, they make the reference that, hey, you don't know, Artemis could be a 300-pound man in her in his mom's basement. No, she's a conventionally beautiful woman.
Yep.
No, we had nothing to say there, actually.
Exactly.
But that's the thing that I like, is like this story in this book is, vicariously defended by a certain sectum of geekdom, right? And what does this story really tell you? It's that you can be in VR as much as you want. You can still get the girl at the end. Like, I find that fucking lame. It's fucking stupid, and I get why some geeks fucking love it, because it's a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
But there's other things that it does too, like with gaming culture, the misogyny of online gaming. That's not here, And I mean, everyone's obsessed with playing this game, but there's no fucking anonymous racism or anything, because they can hide behind their fucking voice mic. That's not here either.
Right.
And fine, you don't want to do that. Okay, but it's such an important part of the story that there's some things I just think are kind of weird, kind of lazy, right? And in the ending, they had that weird scene in Halliday's bedroom, and the whole movie we've learned that the Oasis rules everyone's lives. Society really kind of fell apart, and it's all people have. And cool, escapism. You could say something about escapism here, right? No, we're just gonna shut it off 2 times a week because it's better to be outside in the real world. But you just wrote that on the chalkboard 2 seconds before you told that to us. You didn't. That was not the direction the movie was going at all. It would have been more commendable if they were just like, yeah, you know what? Hide from the world. Let's go. But you said there's no emotional stakes. There's also just no real stakes anyway. Because oh, what's IO9 gonna do? Ben Mendelsohn's corporation. Oh, we got to fight so they don't put ads in my fucking MMO.
Right.
It's not a real thing. That's not a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, when the line that's supposed to be the big catcher of the movie. So this is full spoiler at this point. So if you haven't seen it and you somehow stayed through this review, just click off and come back later. But Ty Sheridan's character, Wade, just survived an explosion of his home, where his aunt and the only person he's had to care for him since his parents died, which was, I think, supposed to set up this tragic orphan story of a sense, but really was never touched upon. And he's confronting the person that did it, Ben Mendelsohn's character, and he goes, "You killed my mom's sister," pretty much just the way I said it. And I was like, I almost laughed in the theater, because I thought it was supposed to be kidding, what? How is that? Man, it's just the fact that, I mean, this movie could have been more, and even Artemis, right? Okay, so she ends up being this beautiful white woman. she just decides that Wade is the one that has to be the savior.
Again, a totally dumb thing.
Makes no sense.
She was more competent the whole time. Oh,
she was more well known apparently because she had this Twitch stream. It makes way more sense for her to become like this.
But
figure.
Wade, you know more about Halliday than anyone else, which again is that weird crutch about the whole story about the '80s thing, right?
Right.
But, you deserve it more.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he deserves it more. Like it's
right, and they had the pieces with Halliday's background where he built this reality or this virtual reality because he couldn't really make connections in the real world,
right.
And so you basically have right there that like virtual reality is a distraction from what's really important. And then at the end, they're just like, yeah, so just do it 2 days a week. And then the rest of the time be in this world again. Like you said, it's just, the storytelling missed the marks. I think, that final battle scene though, like with everything that's going on there, you see mega metal Godzilla versus Iron Giant. And what was the
Gundam?
Gundam. Chucky running around. Like there were parts of it that I think like, you look back and you're just like that was fun, but overall, not a great movie.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, it was weird because like in the book, apparently it's not the Iron Giant, it's Ultraman, who's a Japanese like big robot dude, right? But the Iron Giant, if we watch the classic Brad Bird animated film, The Iron Giant, you learn that the Iron Giant was a pacifist. And if Lena Waithe is going to build an Iron Giant in the Oasis because it looks cool, you think she would have been obsessed enough to understand that he wasn't a fighter. And I get it. It's a video game world. People do that all the time. Fine. But a weird choice on Spielberg's part to have the Iron Giant be a fighter, in my opinion.
Shout out that Shining scene though. That Shining level.
Right. So I think that whole Shining bit, which Spielberg is an open fan of Stanley Kubrick, and influenced by it. In fact, he finished AI, artificial intelligence, which the work was visually started by Kubrick. That Shining thing I thought was genius and great. That scene was flat out awesome.
Yep.
And I was really happy to see that. There was one line which I thought was so fucking corny. And again, the movie in general, like it requires some buy-in. Like the whole premise is dumb. And there's some corniness to it. But if you buy in, like I said, I think you can find it enjoyable. But one line that I could not let go was, every fanboy knows a hater. Something that has never been said before in the history of humanity. People don't talk like that.
No. Especially like nerd culture. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, for all of its problems, I think it's still a movie you can go enjoy if you just take it for the fact that you're going for the nostalgia, you're going for some cool action scenes, and that's about it. Like that racing scene, like you said, it was fucking great.
Yeah. From what I gathered, the book, most of the keys, like the challenges, were all changed, minus the one at the end with the adventure on Atari. They were changed to make them easier for the movie. And also, apparently in the book, once they got the key, and then you remember he would put it into the door and open the gate. There actually was a second challenge in the book once you open the gate, but they took those out obviously because in the runtime, which makes sense and probably a smart idea. But yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of like another Spielberg movie. This is kind of like Hook.
Right.
I know people our age kind of have nostalgia for Hook because of when it came out, but a lot of people older than us are not fans of Hook at all. And think, Dustin Hoffman just fucking overacts the shit out of Captain Hook, right?
He made a choice.
He made a choice. But then people our age are like, yeah, but like Rufio, dog, right?
Yeah.
I gotta say though, one thing I appreciate as well about this is Ben Mendelsohn is on a fucking run right now, dog. He ever since he won that Emmy for Bloodline, which he didn't even go to the ceremony, which fucking respect. He's been in Rogue One, Ready Player One. He'll be in Robin Hood this fall as the sheriff of fucking Nottingham.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the main villain in Captain Marvel next year.
He fucking loves it, dude. Like, he just loves that role.
Yeah. Getting that fucking paper, being a fucking bad dude. But he was great. Like, as the slimy business executive, I thought he was perfectly cast for Ready Player One. He did a good job. He wasn't phoning it in at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. For if you're trying to be serious about this movie and say, oh, we'll miss all these emotional marks, or it had this problem, it also like one of like the best moments when he gets like fucking kicked in the crotch, through a video game, and he feels it like, and it's just that type of movie. Like he was good though, and Mendelsohn is just a class act, man. Good for him. I'm glad he's getting this work. Who's in the Robin Hood? Who's playing Robin Hood in that? Do you remember?
Eggsy, Taron Egerton.
Oh shit! All
right,
I'm in. All right. Well, we should probably wrap up there. We're running a little bit long on today's episode. So basically, go ahead.
See, did you like T.J. Miller as IROC? I actually thought it was kind of funny.
I thought he was funny. I also felt like T.J. Miller realized how absurd this movie was probably before anyone else did, and was like,
sure.
What? Yeah, he was good though.
And lastly, if you were a fan of Olivia Cooke, this is the first time you saw her, go watch Thoroughbreds, which came out earlier this year, she's the co-lead in that. We did a review. Check it out. But I think she'll be around a long time, as we said before.
Yeah, she's a star for sure. Just to recap, Isle of Dogs, good. Ready Player One, meh to bad. Voidz, bad. Czarface, MF Doom, pretty good.
Good.
Kacey Musgraves, yeah.
Good.
And then The Weeknd, My Dear Melancholy, yeah, pretty good. So definitely give us your feedback. Tweet at us at NowstalgiaPod, at Martin Swagger, at Sheeny World Peace. Also, again, subscribe on YouTube, share us with friends, go to iTunes, leave a rating and review, and follow us there as well. Any last thoughts, Dave?
Kind of got a big music week coming up. Thursday, we have a new record from Saba, the Chicago rapper who's a freaking collaborator of Chance. You'll recognize him on Angels and other songs. So I'm interested to see that because I'm a pretty big fan of his work. I think Bucketless Project, his last project, I enjoyed. Then Friday, 4/6, out of nowhere, we have Invasion of Privacy, the debut album from Cardi B. It's coming. It's here.
What'd you think of that first single?
The new single, Be Careful. It's been getting mixed reviews. I like the lyrical content for it. Obviously, it's talking about the infidelity with Offset.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are dragging that hook, and which I get. She's not a good singer on it, and it's kind of off key. But I feel like the song wouldn't mean as much if they had like someone else on the hook.
Right.
So I can see it both ways. Also, Flatbush Zombies releasing Vacation in Hell. Their lead single Headstone is on our best Spotify Best of 2018 playlist. Eagerly awaiting that record. We also have 30 Seconds to Mars. I don't know where you stand on Jared Leto's musical project, but we have a new record from them.
Can't wait.
And then lastly, Little Xan releases his debut. He's been in the news for kind of the wrong reasons for Tupac comments, like a lot of people his age. So his big hit Betrayed is fucking got like 160 million streams on Spotify for reference. He's popular. So we'll see how that goes. And then movie front, only thing really notable is Blockers, that comedy with Leslie Mann, Ike Barinholtz, and John Cena, which actually has good to great reviews, similar to Game Night. So I'm actually kind of intrigued to see it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Legion as well is out.
Legion. We should talk Legion next week for sure.
Definitely,
Legion,
first
some
week.
music. I don't know if I'll make it to those movies, but maybe I'll try to catch that Death of Stalin movie.
Yeah, please see that. That movie's awesome.
Yeah, so a lot coming up. The girl Cardi B dropping that first album. I bet we'll be talking about that quite a bit. But yeah, so tune in next week. Again, support us any way that you can. We appreciate you. We love you. We'll see you next week.